Yeah. Okay, I'm going to start recording now.
Sounds good.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first audio episode of the Leftology Podcast. For our host, it'll just be me this week, and I have our guest, which is Isocratic.
What's up?
Today, we will be talking about, in general, we probably have a few off topics. We'll be talking about the rise of the alt-right online, which historically we're putting that in between, or I'm going to put that in between about 2010 to 2016. I would consider the election of Donald Trump the change from the internet to the real world, kind of seeing it. I don't want to say the internet has the full responsibility for that, but definitely some of it.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely like a culture that's been harbored through the internet, like especially through like meme culture. I'd say that's where you can see a lot of the alt right.
Yeah, meme culture is a big part of it. And I, about a week ago, watched this new documentary that is only on Amazon Prime, I believe, so far. It's about $5 if you want to rent it. The title is Feels Good Man. It's about the progression of Pepe the Frog from a like secondary comic book character to like a symbol treated as a hate symbol by the ADL.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts. I haven't seen it. I watched some after you brought it up a few days ago. I went and watched something about it, and I actually really want to see it now because it is crazy how this like innocent character from some like obscure like comic book ended up being like a symbol of like white nationalism. Like I don't even know how that happens. Like one of the most interesting things I think with the internet.
It documents it very well because the original thing, it's based off only a few people that probably have read it and then spread it to the internet. But a lot of the people in the documentary, it was at least 2 or 3 people in the documentary, but they represented a much larger demographic of those types of people in 4chan, 8chan, or whatever message board also exists that helps spread it. But they saw the comic book and they were like, "Oh, someone that's cool. Somebody made a Pepe comic book," and not the other way around as it was in reality. So they began to think it had become so separated from the originality that it had.
So it got so separated that people thought that the original comic that it stemmed from was based on the meme and not the other way around, that the meme came from the comic book.
Yes, not
That's
everyone, but
insane.
there were a good amount of people to where it was an actual
That's
thing
actually
that
crazy.
was spread.
Oh my gosh. Why Pepe? Do they go
Give
into
me a
that at
minute.
all? Like on like why these groups decided like Pepe would be their symbol?
It definitely goes into that. Just give me a minute. My dad's FaceTiming me,
Yeah,
and I
you're
gotta
good.
tell him I can't talk right now.
You're good. You're good.
So they go into it, and originally it's from the scene in, I believe it's one of the first 2 issues, but I'm willing to be corrected on it because I have not read that comic book at all. But I know that there are only 4 issues out of the entire series. So it comes from this. The gag is that Pepe's kind of, as they describe him in the movie as like the little brother of the group, which the group is of 4 people. He's kind of like the always happy-go-lucky guy that doesn't really see like a problem in the world, I guess, for the most part. So one of the other characters catches him with his pants down while he's using the like toilet. And another character comes up to him and he says, "I heard from other characters that you pee with your pants down. Why do you do that?" And then it's just the original Pepe of him saying, "Feels good, man." And that was spread originally on, I want to say, the fitness 4chan board. just kind of feels good, man, feels good to work out. But there's also the mentality of like fitness bros that can somewhat lean into alt-right
Yeah,
territory.
definitely. I mean, like, I've seen a few. I can't think of the creator currently. They did a lot of videos on like the alt right, and one of the ways that the alt right's ideas get spread is by sort of infiltrating, like, and maybe not always on purpose, but infiltrating these communities, and like the rhetoric and the language and some of the jokes they use end up getting spread, and then work its way to moving people even further and further right, basically. It is really crazy though how such a meme went from being just a feels good man to literally, like, I mean, it takes 2 seconds to find something where Pepe the Frog has like a swastika on his arm.
Yeah, it's really quick. I think it's later in the film. I don't want to give it all away because it's a good documentary. Please go watch it if you're listening to this. But they talk about later. I think this is more moving into like the 2013 to 2015 part of this. But eventually Pepe goes more mainstream. And I think it was Nicki Minaj and Katy Perry who tweeted Pepe memes. And that definitely wasn't the spark. It was probably a thing before it. But you probably haven't heard this term in a while, or else you're on the wrong websites. But they're the people they called normies, which would be like Instagram people, I guess, is what the Reddit peoples call
yeah.
normies now. Please get off Reddit, get a life if you're listening to this. So there was already that sense of other put inside of them, but it was, or in the people on 4chan that were spreading this meme. But they also felt that their symbol, which we can get into what the symbol meant a little bit. I think I skipped over that, and I probably should have gone over that beforehand. But they felt like their symbol was being taken from them. So towards the earlier parts of this, when it goes mainstream, they begin to making Pepe more edgier, not in attempts of like a political move, but in attempts to like see if they can stop this meme from going mainstream. They want to keep their reference. They want to protect what is theirs, I guess, in a sense, from everybody having it. Sure, it's definitely a dumb sentiment, but
Well, it's kind of
that was
funny
the motivation
that
behind it.
that sentiment exists there, and then within the ideologies of the alt right, that sentiment follows to things even like to nation. Like, I mean, like, that exact sort of sentiment is reflected on these people who like want to keep their nation as theirs, get it away from all these in this case the normies would be minorities, but it's the same sort of like mentality, I guess.
Yeah, definitely is. So the reason that Pepe gets swept up, as I stated beforehand, is the feels good man, which comes into like the fitness bros thing. But the comic as a whole is a representation, as they explain in the film, of like the post college directionlessness, I guess would be a good way to put it. Kind of just you finish bachelor school, now you're in an apartment with your three bros and you don't know what to do with the rest of your life. But within the comic, that's treated more happily, just like in real life. That's kind of a happy-ish time. It's not like hopelessness to every single person. It's kind of like you and your bros get pizza on a Wednesday night and you just hang out. But kind of the directionlessness part, just that part, not the happiness part, kind of identify with some of the people on the message boards, because the people on the message boards are the people who a lot of these people live in their like mom's basement. They're the epitome of that like stereotype.
Yeah.
So they sympathize with these characters, and Pepe in particular because of his spreadableness, I guess would be a good way to put it. Meme memeableness. I don't want to sound
Memeableness.
like a I don't want to sound
Yeah,
I don't want to sound like some
I think that's
42
something
year old
like,
woman.
it's kind of bad that at one in one sense it's a really good commentary about like some of the more modern day like struggles. Like it is true. I think a lot of people whether they're more on the left or the right, kind of feel this sort of directionlessness whenever you get out of school. Like when you're done with college, it's like what's next? And especially with like how hard it can be to find a meaningful like career, where a lot of people have to fill like jobs they don't want to and whatnot, and they don't really know what they're going where they're going. They no longer have like a purpose or a drive. Um, it's sad that most of these people end up making their purpose into this sort of hateful like ideology. Like that's kind of what the alt right is. It's a bunch of people who can't find purpose, so they find purpose in like saving the white race or whatever other fairy tale they end up selling themselves. So it's just sad because I think one, it's a really good commentary on a problem that we're dealing with just in our postmodern like society that we live in. And it's just sad that it was so taken in by one group that probably feels this and decides to fulfill that feeling through like hatred instead of like some of us who see, like, I would say me, I feel that to an extent. I'm about to graduate, I understand that feeling, but for me I see it as like I want to push progress in society and liberate like groups that I think are suffering oppression and whatnot. And I think so people on the left could resonate with that message. It's just a real shame that somehow this was totally co-opted by the few people who decide to deal with those problems in such a hateful way.
Well, it's not just like the post college directionlessness. It's kind of, they had a word for it. It was somebody that didn't go into like education work or something. I forget the term right now. For
Neat.
Yeah, neat.
Yeah.
NEET.
Where it's they're not going to. It's like
not in education, employment, or training. It's kind of this group of. It's not the post college directionlessness for a lot of these people. It's the post high school directionlessness. They didn't go to their town community college, or they didn't go to a big university. They're just at home. They're not seeking a job. They're not training for a job or going to vocational school.
Yeah, I mean, like, even I was using after college, but I mean, yeah, this goes all the way down to that, where it's this sense of it's something that I hate giving like Jordan Peterson any credit for, but that's why his book took off too, is he tried to like explain to people to have like purpose and to find this purpose, which people really resonate with, because one of the things that we really struggle with today is finding that. I mean, like the fact that people can do neat, it seems to be kind of like a weird thing. Like the ability to not have to do either one of those and having like no feeling to do those things. It's I don't know, it's just a really interesting predicament we're in, and I think the way that people deal with it, which is why this is what I think there's been a big rise in the alt-right. I mean, there's a few things that have aided it, but this seems to be the biggest thing, is this this feeling of purposelessness and trying to fulfill it by selling some sort of fairy tale to themselves. And most of the time that happens to be like some sort of white nationalist fairy tale where they think their race is being attacked. So, all these sheep that do day-to-day work are too busy to notice it. But me over here, who doesn't have a job, isn't educating myself, I see the truth. And my purpose is to save my race, my family, from these minority groups that are trying to take over,
Definitely. But I about Jordan Peterson, I do think it's interesting that like these like 20-something old males will do what their mom has been telling them for the last decade, only when the guy that compares their society to crustaceans tells them to do it.
It's because he did it in like a manly way, and men don't want to listen to their moms for some reason. Come on now, dude, your mom has good advice, all right?
She brings you the pizza rolls.
Yeah, come on, you can at least pay her back by cleaning your room.
Oh, that's another big thing. There's not cleaning your room is also a thing for 4chan.
Oh,
it's a contest of a sense.
Where they like try to see who has the dirtiest room?
It's the best way I can put it is that a bunch of people on 4chan have a degrading fetish, but have no way of getting a boyfriend and or girlfriend. So that the entire like chat or the entire message board is that for all of them.
is to like
They,
fulfill like their degrading fetish.
I don't want to call it like not maybe not in like a sexual sense, but in some sort of the mind, they get some pleasure out of being called a loser.
Hmm.
It's very weird. I don't know how to explain it the best possible way, but they contacted this guy who said he knew a lot about Pepe. They walk in, his room is just horrible. I think his bed was like a pull-out couch. He just threw every trash, including like the bags that you would get from like fast food places, just on the floor with no regard, just on purpose, not even out of just not thinking. It was just he willingly did that
Like willingly made it disgusting.
to get internet points. Yes.
I guess like the thing is when you are kind of a loser, you feel better if you like embrace that. So instead of like looking at it as a problem, you look at it like once again to fulfill that purposefulness that they're missing out on. It's like it gives them something to identify with. They get to identify with this group of losers, and they take it. They want to, because they want to identify with something. And if that is what they're going to be considered, it's easier for them to identify with it. Actually, I think that's why as much as it's hard to bring people out of the alt-right a lot of the times, the best way to do it is through some sort of compassion, because I think it mainly comes from like a, a weird hatred of like towards themselves, in some senses, like with this degrading themselves sort of, and a lot of like self-destructive behavior you see in those groups and whatnot.
Yeah, that definitely. We talked about beforehand how both of us kind of were on a path to go to the all right, but weren't, but kind of shifted differently. And mine, which is probably about 3 years, about coming up on about 3 years ago, is probably the turning point towards the left. And that comes from kind of learning that other people actually do have compassion for me. They don't just disregard me as human scum and not think about me at all. I don't want to say that that was my ideology of people just treat me like shit always, but compassion does help. And I guess that's kind of why I don't completely like the way where they're just. My thinking is arguing with fascists is not going to be the thing that changes them. If I can say that word, I think I might be demonetized for saying that word. Out of the 1 cent I'll get out of this, but I don't know if you could change them per se, but definitely somebody on the path. If you tell them that there's a world that they need to care about, that there are problems that don't exist, or there are problems that exist outside of them, they'll definitely turn away from it. But to the prior point, the second half of the film generally deals with, it kind of strays a little bit further away from Pepe, and it deals a lot more with the question of Donald Trump after he's elected, or after he goes into his campaign. Because a lot of people on 4chan, they said right beforehand they were very skeptical of Donald Trump. And immediately after that first speech, which is extremely xenophobic and like racist in the best terms, or in the most horrible terms possible, least abstract terms possible, they're just like, this is our guy. This is the meme candidate. And they quote unquote memed him to the presidency, which is what you saw on, what was it, like November 8th, 2016. But a lot of 4chaners also adopted his ideology, which I would say the ideology and beliefs of Donald Trump is, in the most basic sense, as they say in the film, that there are winners and there are losers. And the question the film poses is, what happens when that ideology is applied is implemented by the losers, which is the 4chan people.
Like if losers like accept like that there are winners and losers, and they accept being the loser.
I guess in a sense, yes. It's definitely something to think over. It's not the easiest question to ponder.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of weird because usually when people are saying loser, it's a pejorative that's saying basically, oftentimes like in that sense, you're not doing anything. You're sitting in your mom's basement. It's supposed to be more of a when you get called that, it should. I'm not saying that you should bully people, maybe, but when people get called that, it's supposed to be more assembling that you're not doing anything. Um, and it's supposed to, when people say that, hopefully make you realize, hey, maybe I should be doing something with my life. But yeah, it's really weird if they play the trump card and they go like, you know what? I'm a loser and I embrace it. And I'm gonna be the biggest loser I possibly can be. And it's kind of like instead of, and that makes it more difficult, I think, when we're talking about the compassion thing, with getting them out of that too, because what it ends up being is like, say you have someone in a hole, right? And they've been trying to get out of this hole. And by the time you come over there and you're gonna help them out of this hole because no one else has, they just got a shovel and they started digging that hole deeper because they've embraced being in this hole, just as they've embraced their position in society and purposefulness. I cannot say that word, but purposelessness.
Yeah.
Instead of like trying to get out of that, they just kind of embrace it and go even like deeper, which is where you get like, I think this is kind of where you end up with them thinking things that are totally opposite of one reality or what is the norm. For instance, like I think this is where like Nazism would kind of like come in as well, while we see this connection.
You got to be careful with those words. I'm trying to.
Okay, I'm sorry.
If you ever make it past 1,000 subscribers, this video is not making money.
It doesn't matter. I have like so many videos where I've used
Neither
the
am I.
word fascist like a million times, so I'm not even worried about it. But I think
You'll get like $1 off of like 1 out of your 1,000 videos whenever you pass that threshold.
Hopefully. But I think this is where the link though between the sort of 4chan culture and that culture happen, is because believing in Nazism and fascism and stuff is so the opposite of the norm in society, right? Like it's a common thing to go, Nazis are bad, the Holocaust is bad. And if you're going to dig the deeper hole of loser and you're now asking for hate in some weird way instead of trying to get people to see you as likable and make your life better, what's better to do than be a guy who denies the Holocaust and says we should get rid of minorities, right?
That goes into the that also goes into the making their jokes a lot more edgier to point where they cannot be accepted by the mainstream.
Yeah, exactly.
So eventually the brain kind of, I learned this on TikTok when one of them came up, and it was like, your brain cannot tell the difference between irony and what you actually like. And if you joke about this fetish enough, eventually you'll get it. So eventually, if you joke about the stuff, you'll be a lot more susceptible to it. And I think there's a video within the movie of Richard Spencer talking about Pepe is like their largest asset, which I think is the direct quote, actually. And the making the memes as edgy as possible can only help the alt-right, help Spencer's movement, because the edgiest thing, as you said beforehand, is Holocaust denial. It is accepting the far-right ideologies of Spencer and others, of ethno-states and stuff like that, hating minorities. That's what eventually they become more susceptible to. So when you go on Instagram and you have these meme pages that repost stuff on Reddit and 4chan of the most edgy memes possible, Pinochet throwing commies out of helicopters, Pepe in like full like Third Reich gear. And then you go on YouTube and there's Ben Shapiro that links you to Stefan Molyneux that eventually links you to Richard Spencer. Eventually things click and eventually you start liking the ideology in a sense, because they're the guys that also like the memes that you laugh at. And you could also get into anti-SJW stuff, which is
This is
big,
actually
big.
an interesting point. I mean, I don't think obviously some sorts of edginess should be not allowed. I don't think you can deny the Holocaust, right? But this is something I've actually critiqued the left on a little bit. Is our sort of so anti edginess kind of pushes these people who may start with just an edgy sense of humor, right, to fall down this like rabbit hole. And this is kind of what I think, other than my conservative upbringing, I think this is part of what brought me that way. As I was an edgy kid, I like to make edgy jokes, you know. Um, but if I said that around like my liberal friend, my one liberal friend in my college full of like conservatives, I would get like hated for it. And I was like, well, I can't joke with these people. I can't be friends with these people. Um, and what does that leave as the alternative? The person that you get to be friends with is the guy who has some not so safe beliefs, um,
Yeah,
like Richard Spencer and whatnot. You know, and then finally you feel accepted. I can make my jokes. I can do this and that. And I'm not saying the left should just like allow any jokes to slide, but I think it shows that we have to understand that edginess has a place to play in humor, and we can't just completely ignore it, because if we do, we're going to actively aid the alt-right in its growth.
yeah, but there's also the way we've seen it on the left with attracting people from the right to our cause through slightly edgier people instead of just saying clean all the time. They're not going like full on like as edgy as the alt right is, but they do have a little bit of edge. They do get a little angry. They do criticize some people. I think the three best at it that I've seen that helped turn me at least from the right to the left were probably in order would be like Some More News on YouTube, which is like Cody Johnston, and Chapo Trap House is probably second, which is a very controversial podcast on the left. I listen to that one a lot still, and then Vosh. Those are definitely. Some More News is probably not is probably the least edgy, but he gets a little angry, which is something that the right feels.
Yeah,
So
Vosh is a really good one. I know there's a lot of people who hate Vosh a ton, but for me, when I was joining the left, the one thing I still hated whenever I came out of that, because I turned away from the right the moment I started hearing some dude unironically saying we should segregate races, and I was like, I don't think this is for me. So I started my, political journey getting out of that, because I was always more of a libertarian when I was on the right, so that didn't jive with me at all.
yeah, I think it was in seventh grade I got into going into the right because I was up at like 2 a.m. on a winter ski trip, and then I saw a political meme page, and it was like, "We support the military. Like if you support the military," and I was like, "I support the military," and then I followed them, and then I followed some other people, and eventually you get to like following like Republican meme pages and stuff like that, which will lead you further right because the internet right hadn't fully formed in like 2014
Yeah, for me
or
it was a
2013.
combination of things. So I grew up in a really red part of Texas. There's no getting around a conservative upbringing.
Yeah,
But I was
at least at the beginning.
yeah, and I was always a little bit more like left than my other friends. I remember when I stumbled upon like UBI or something, I was like, "Whoa, this is a really good idea because people won't have to work their whole life or whatever." Um, and whatnot. So I had some ideas. So I was more of like a liberal conservative, right? But once again, like I said, I had liberal friends that I literally couldn't make jokes around. So I started hanging out with my edgier people I had at school, and they were the ones that would follow these crazy meme pages that made insanely edgy jokes. And then I started making meme pages that made these jokes. And then I don't know, I kept going down and down. I watched Ben Shapiro every day. I watched Steven Crowder. Oh no, I never watched Steven Crowder. I still hate Steven Crowder. I've never liked Steven Crowder, even when I was on the right. But I liked Ben Shapiro and this and that. I never really got into like Spencer and whatnot. But I stumbled upon this one YouTube channel called like Renaissance something. I can't quite remember the name. But this guy in this video, and this was my turnaround after being a part of the right for a really long time, sharing right wing alt right memes, or alt light memes, I guess. Uh, was the moment he was talking about how he was like, you see that the races are segregated now. We should just do this to a more extreme. It would solve all the problems. And then he said something about saving like the white race or something, and how America was for the whites. And me, luckily, my inner libertarian spirit jumped out and was like, yo, I don't know how you got here, but you need to go the other way. And from then on, it's just been a slow journey of I became more progressive, and then from there, economic stuff came on. And then, like I said, once I got more on the left, I was basically a socialist, a libertarian socialist, all the way there. I still disliked. I couldn't find many edgy people, and then I stumbled across Vosh, who would make an edgy joke here or there, and that satisfied me. And now I'm a happy leftist. So that's why I think we need a little bit of edginess because some of us enjoy that kind of content, and I think it can help bring people on the left. Because if you can't have anyone on the left making any of this stuff, and I'm not saying make literal like alt right edgy jokes, but we have our own form of edginess that we can play out.
Yeah,
if you
like don't do class reductionism.
Yeah, of course not. But like we can have some sort of like edginess, and I think that in some ways can combat the sort of running to the alt right because you just want to be edgy and you're not necessarily alt right, and then you become alt right because of it.
Yeah. For me, it was probably more personal experience kind of made me have to accept that my worldview is directly harmful if implemented towards people that I like really, really cared about. I've talked about this on like streams beforehand a lot of times. A lot of people, or the few people that come into comments, always ask, "How did you get to the left?" So there's like 3 other episodes on me and the other guys talking about this. So eventually, like, I had to stop following those meme pages I'd followed because I was like, I literally don't agree with this stuff anymore. This is not funny to me. I think I switched first on like feminism and war, if I remember correctly.
That's funny. That was me too, actually. My not only from that, like hearing the segregation stuff, I was still like conservative after that. I just stepped away from the radical right. I was still like your just normal conservative. But actually, war is what turned me away from it. I learned about the military-industrial complex, and which then started making me question capitalism. And then that's just from there, we like shot left like so fast. It's not even funny.
I went to AP US history, and I was like, I did my own research outside because I'm not reading a textbook. And I was like, oh wait, we're the bad guys most of the time.
Yeah.
I can't defend this. This is the bad stuff. This is genocide. So just generally learning about history was like, that's the like downbringing of what I used to believe. And like my immediate response is like, down with the military.
Yeah.
Defund the military to like $100 billion. Let's do that. Let's fund other things.
Yeah, and then that gets you in just circles with with the anti-war movement. There is some questionable things, like you end up running into some weird right type people that are anti-war. But you do get to meet a lot of people on the left who are anti-war, and I think that helped me a lot. I got to meet tons of people through that. I ended up learning about socialism. Then I started getting involved with like the DSA a little bit.
And we don't really have a DSA here. There's probably one in our state, but it's not close enough to me to.
We have one in the city nearby, and then we have one on campus. I don't really do much on the one on campus because I'm busy, but I started trying to get involved in these things, and then from there you just learn more and more. And then you learn all these sorts of like types of oppression that exist that are messed up. It's kind of like a pipeline to the left in a weird way, but a pipeline that's more honest, I guess.
Definitely. I think a big turning point was thinking about it now. Something I never thought about is that this comes about the time, this is the first year in high school that I can drive on my own, which would be the second year of high school. So in the mornings, my dad would drive me to school, and he'd have the local conservative radio playing. And then my grandpa would pick me up, take me to Hardee's, and all we would talk about on the way back is the primaries, the Republican primaries, which he supported Ben Carson despite him being a different type of, or one of the weirder types of Christianity, which I believe is Seventh-day Adventist or something like that. There's a more common term for it, but I don't know it at the moment. So being able to just like not have it constantly hammered into my head was probably a big factor. And it's probably a factor why people stay conservative for so long, is because that's all they hear.
Yeah, I mean, I think we even have studies. I'd have to like look it up, but I'm pretty sure there's studies about how people's political affiliation is heavily influenced by family. And for me, that was a big thing. My family was conservative. My all the way to my grandparents, everyone was conservative. My grandma still got like her Trump hat and always has Trump on the TV. So yeah, getting out of that also helped me because I didn't get left until I started going to college, which was a while back now. But it took being able to get out of that environment, and actually since then, being able to do my own research on things, not being dogmatic and just believing whatever I hear from my family or friends that I grew up with that were conservative were correct. I was able to come to my own conclusions about things, and actually, I've influenced my own family. My mom and my dad, for instance, aren't voting for Trump, which is a lot better. We went from voting to Trump to my dad going like, I'm gonna vote third party of some kind, and my mom going that she's riding with Biden. So, we've made some progress, and I think it's because I never like shamed my dad or my mom for believing those things. Instead, I would just talk to them and go, "Do you really think this?" And I think that's the best we can do to convince these people. I mean, I think like debates and stuff, like you see Vosh debate fascists, can help sometimes. I think some people probably like see that and they go, wow, maybe these fascists don't know what they're talking about. But I
Yeah,
think when we're really trying to get someone who is deep down in the outright, the best way to do it is just by one, either they're lost and you can't bring them back, or two, just being as compassionate as possible with them and just trying
yeah.
to talk
The
to them.
the debates are definitely for an audience. You're not trying to convince the person on the other side your point. You're trying to convince a large audience your point.
For sure.
Which, I mean, that's like the point of being a lawyer, I guess. You're not trying to convince the other lawyer that your guy didn't commit a crime. You're trying to convince
The
a jury.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think some people do. I think Vosh talked about how a lot of these people respect power, so being able to overpower these people with your arguments, sometimes convince them over, and whatnot. And I think one of the things when people do get brought over, I talked about this in a video not too long ago for a little bit, but I saw this on Twitter too, is that a lot of people don't want to accept like ex alt writers or ex fascist into the left, and I think that's like super problematic because these people are working on a change. They're not going to be perfect. They're going to slip up. They're going to say something kind of reactionary here and there. But I think it's our duty to correct them on that and also accept them at the same time. Like some
Yeah.
tough love, instead of just a rejection.
At least from what I've seen, if it happens younger, like if we're not talking like a 40, 50-year-old guy turning over, if we're talking about like teens to 20 guys, like within 2 to 3 years, once their like axiom completely changes over, like those are probably like the most passionate leftists. Like both of us technically would fit.
I
in
mean,
that
we're sitting here making
category.
content right now, so I mean, I would say
Yeah, we're
for sure. Yeah, I mean, like I made a whole YouTube channel to talk about politics because of my change, and being so passionate about what I stand for now.
yeah, I gotta like make up for all the bad things I said while I was on the right. The 3 times I was transphobic to somebody made me feel really badly, so I have to like make
Yeah.
up for it my entire life now. Sorry about that. Back in 8th grade.
Yeah, I mean,
8th grade Cameron, bad Cameron.
I often think about times where I've said something awful back then, and it's haunting to an extent because I know I can never take back what is said. But I hope by actually fighting for these issues and whatnot, maybe I can make up for it to some extent.
Yeah, there's a lot of people definitely would fight harder for something they feel like they've been on the wrong side of.
Yeah, it's
Not
also
everybody.
I'm also really passionate about bringing people from the right to the left because I felt that and I understand what these people are usually going through. It's usually like a ton of loneliness. Sometimes it's factors they can't control, like being grown up conservative and whatnot. So I feel for a lot of these people. And I hope in some way I can like bring them over, I guess.
Yeah, it is talking about them back in the movie. These people are in a bubble. Like we as content creators at least interact in some sense with the right, maybe not in person, but by watching a couple of their videos to critique. But these people are completely absent of like an actual left. They think that a lot of these think the Democrats are as left as it gets, that Nancy Pelosi is like the spawn of Satan and needs to be removed from her like child predator waves or something like that. So they don't really get a view of the entire spectrum of politics, and they don't even get the small view that they had represented correctly or unbiasedly. So convincing a lot of people that A, don't go outside that often, and B, that don't interact with any other type of worldview is definitely a hard task to pull off.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely difficult, especially with a worldview that is so twisted and different from reality, you know. But I think that's the best thing we're gonna do, because I think as society we only move forward as fast as the person that's the furthest back, the slowest mover. And I think people on the alt-right tend to be the slowest movers in progress. So I think it's worth trying to talk to these people, as much as it may be frustrating. I'm trying to get through them, but in the end, doing so is definitely worth it.
Oh, definitely. Having people on your side is a good thing. It's watching the movie is definitely interesting. It's going back to what we were originally talking about, because there's a lot you definitely do not consider. It is a total shift in worldview, something that you've completely forgotten about in the last like 2 to 3 years because you're not a part of it any longer. So it just kind of feels weird going back and seeing a different, much worse path in a sense that you could have gone down.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I don't think they really talked to any like full on far right people, but they definitely talked about people that like cared about the memes way too much.
Yeah, because it ends up becoming more than just the meme, but like you can act like you care about the meme, act like you care about the cause, whatever that cause may be, whether it's like oppressing minorities or whatever it is. It's kind of weird. The ideas they stand for end up being represented so heavily by these memes that it's kind of, I mean, it's one of the ways they kind of get away with some of what they say too, is with they'll pull it's just a meme. Um,
Yeah, that was a big part of it too, because you can hide. There's a way to hide behind a sense of irony, which, as I said earlier, eventually, if you're doing something ironically, eventually you're going to like it unironically. Like take 100 gex for example. Nobody liked 100 gex originally. Then they listened to them for 3 times, and they're like, okay, I guess it's my favorite band now. Because they liked it as a joke originally, and they're just like, haha. It's like, oh, now this trash is all I can listen to. So that would be the same with the alt right in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, you unironically talk about like, I mean, you ironically talk about wanting to get rid of minorities, and then you do it enough with your buddies. Eventually, it becomes unironic, or at least there's no way to different like make a notice the difference between when someone's being ironic and unironic. And
Well, if you make the joke, eventually you'll click on the video that explains that worldview by like Stefan Molyneux or whatever the Raging Bull has coming out this week. I don't know what else. The furry dragon that spouts out far right propaganda. Whatever type of video you watch to, you know, that says the same thing that your meme does, but they're, like I said earlier, they're more susceptible to a worldview that is the same as the memes they've been posting. And as leftists, that explains why all of our memes are 2 pages long. Because
I mean, it's true. It's true. Oh my god. Yeah, their memes will be like something just super obscure that has some like hidden meaning that we can't understand, and ours is like an essay from like Karl Marx or something, like making like maybe you clip on the Jewish question by Karl Marx or something stupid. Like it's just
yeah, there's this like, it's a dog whistle for why we shouldn't have Mexican people in our countries, and ours is like a Fortnite guy dancing, and it's like, why should the value of property be that of all
yeah.
when it could be property of all?
I mean, when I was a part of the alt-right, for an example, my favorite meme was just this orange cylinder that was called Long Boy. It had no meaning like whatsoever, but that's why it was funny, is because you could make it mean anything. So you and your friends could be like,
Surreal.
yeah, like I could be making a joke with my friend at the time about like Holocaust denial or something and be using long boy to make that joke, which seems to mean nothing to anyone else. And sometimes it was funny because it didn't mean anything else. But it's just like the memes that are used are so like obscure, and that allows them to be like dog whistly and all these other things. Or maybe they literally mean nothing, but yeah.
Oh no, or dog whistly. Like stone toss is a big one. That's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
pure dog whistles. So it's a funny joke to people who don't know the dog whistle, but it's like, oh, this is what we mean to the people that do get the dog whistle.
Yeah, and the thing is too, if people start figuring out the dog whistle, all they have to go is, "What are you talking about? It's just a funny meme. It's not a dog whistle." I mean, that's kind of why it's also hard to engage with these people through like I guess through their memes, like because if you ever try to call it out, it all of a sudden goes from whatever dog whistle it was supposed to be to that meme because they'll reject it being like true.
Well, that's a benefit of like a whole political system. If we the best way it was explained to me was, say that there's like 5 levels from conservative to full out fascist. Conservative being 1, like full on, far right being 5. You got to freak out sometimes when people make the comments bordering like 1 or 2, because the people that are in 5 make the same jokes. So it's kind of indistinguishable. But the people in 1 don't make the jokes that are in stages 4 or 5. So those are like obvious tells. But you kind of get, that's why the left gets like emotional about so many things, is because 1 and 2, in a lot of senses, are either used or are ways to get people to go to 4 and then 5 or further right, more harmful to the average person ideologies.
Yeah, which then causes the left to seem like they're being anti your jokes or anti your speech or whatever, which then
Owning the liberals
which
by
then ends up
saying,
turning into a rejection of those exact people, which then that's why I think like being like just blatantly anti like edginess or whatever is bad, is because when we do that, what happens is the thing we're trying to keep these people from doing by like like stopping them from getting 4 and 5 by stopping them at 1 and 2 makes them reject us, and then it's way easier to get to 4 and 5. It's way easier to be making the unironic jokes.
yeah, but you also have to still be cautious about people studying 1 and 2 stuff.
Yeah, when I'm saying like being edgy and whatnot, I definitely don't mean like full on. I mean, obviously there are times where it doesn't work, it's inappropriate, this isn't something that you can do as a leftist. Like, this is purely like just racist. Also, depending on the audience, I mean, we have to be way more responsible, I think. But I think it's important.
Don't like yell at them for 1 or 2 things. Like sit them down, be like, "Hey, stop being transphobic." But like for 4 and 5, that's when it gets serious. Like when you get like up there talking about like absolute monarchy people,
Yeah,
dictatorship people.
I wasn't considering 1 or 2 like transphobic necessarily. I was thinking of something a lot lighthearted than that. But I mean, like, of course, if it's like transphobic, then like
that is basically 1 through 5 is probably transphobia at this point. Oh. It's something shared by all of them, because there's at least a little bit of that in the general conservative.
Yeah. Then
at least by 2.
I think like the thing is, you need to like, I guess what I was getting at is more like talking to them instead of rejecting them and just being mad at them, which of course you can be angry with them, but do so in a calm way, in a more discussion way, as long as they're willing to. I mean, that's kind of the problem too, is if people aren't willing to have a conversation, there's nothing you can do about it. So in that case, I say go ahead and just let them know like why they're stupid or like why this is wrong. But in the cases where you can talk to them, which I think a lot of people before they get into the far alt-right are willing to talk, you should definitely take the opportunity.
Yeah. And there's always the basic biology or basic economics. You can sit them down and be like, yes, but advanced biology and advanced economics supports my worldview.
Yeah.
What you learned in your Econ 202 class is not the full literacy of economics. It's like the base of all economic systems.
Yeah, that's something also we have to keep in mind too, is a lot of these people are uneducated or just undereducated. And I mean, one of the best ways to fix them falling into these reactionary thought patterns is to educate them on these like issues. Um, if we could do that, then there's no reason for them to believe in the things that they believe. Because oftentimes the reason why they believe them is not because they're just hateful or spiteful, but it's more because they don't have the education necessary to understand why they're wrong.
Yeah, that makes definite sense. And if you're talking about the NEETs, they don't really go into higher ed. They don't understand higher levels of economics more than demand go up, supply go down.
Donks and whatnot, yeah.
They don't even understand stocks. They just think the stocks.
Oh, yeah, I meant like stonks, the meme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just line go up. Profit for people that I think I support goes up.
And the worst part, though, is when you start getting further and further right, when you get into those circles, though, the undereducated and the uneducated end up taking pride in that, where, like, that's why stonks kind of, like, becomes a meme, because it's like, oh, I know I don't know what I'm talking about, but I don't care. That's why I think it's really important to get them in the earlier stages of conservatism instead of, like, bashing them.
Yeah, because they go into, like, weird biological sciences. Like, I think, were you there a few days ago when Mouthy was debating somebody on the far right?
Yeah, on, like, weird, like, race realism and, like, sex realism stuff. Like,
Yeah, like, they just have books that nobody else acknowledges as any source of, like, reliable knowledge, and they just take it and then make it their worldview. They're
yeah,
just
like a lot of, like, JQers, for instance, will use, like, historians that aren't accepted as, like, knowledgeable historians to try to prove their point or whatever. So they fall into a lot of, like, ahistorical stuff or, like, pseudo-science stuff. Yeah. I'm actually debating that Mouthy debated soon.
Yeah.
Fun.
Good luck with that guy. I sat through most of that and I was like, this is torture. This is absolutely.
He seems nice. Really bad opinions, but he seems nice.
You can act nice. You can have the suit on like Richard Spencer does, but you are still like, if your worldview is implemented, like half of the world's population is either going to starve to death or be genocided by.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying that his ideas aren't absolutely like despicable. They definitely are. It's just in a weird way, I'd rather talk to a polite fascist than one who's just gonna scream at me the whole time. You know?
Yeah, like your ideology necessitates war crimes.
Yeah, yeah. Especially when we talk about like when they want to push like things like segregation and whatnot, they don't realize a lot of that requires things like genocide, and it's like you realize you're literally promoting genocide, right? And they'll like make all the mental gymnastics to deny that.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, that was so insufferable. Like the left com was insufferable, but that's because he's 15. but the other guy was just insufferable, like irredeemable, insufferable.
For sure.
Just you can like understand why people might go that way, but like to truly fully believe it is just unexplainable.
Well, it's this idea that nothing anyone believes is real. So then you can't like basically the idea that like academia, the moment you believe that academia has no grounding is the moment for you to believe anything. The moment you start believing all this conspiratorial stuff, it's easier to believe in other conspiratorial stuff, and you start pinning together this worldview that is totally based on conspiracy and not at all grounded in reality, which allows for all this pseudo-scientific stuff to be believable, the rejection of academia, the belief that like Jews run the world, and all these other like thoughts that come along with that. It's just not grounded at all. Is the thing?
It's not. That's why Q is so popular, because I think we talked about it earlier, but Q is not the typical conspiracy theory. It treats its listener as smart, or it treats the people that are following it not as people that are being told something, but people that are being asked something. So it's the conspiracy. The way I'd put it is, it's a conspiracy for people who want to feel smart, because they are given parts of a puzzle that they have to put together that totally doesn't make any sense, but they're the ones putting it together, so it makes them feel good. It makes them feel like they're accomplishing something. They're unraveling some secret hidden truth that some secret society is keeping from them. But in reality, some random guy, probably in like Midwest United States, writes every other week about something with as much vague terms as possible and gets a million people to just, I don't know, believe it.
Yeah, I mean it's just sort of delusional. I mean it's just a belief in conspiracy that leads to insane delusion, and then you convince yourself you're not delusional. You're actually just red pilled. Like
Yeah.
that's what it becomes.
I mean, it's so funny because the red pill for me is generally like now I believe the directors acknowledged it as like understanding that you're not the gender that you're supposed to be. It's waking up and realizing that reality has lied to you. The gender stereotypes don't mean anything for you anymore. But I guess it's a general, in the most general terms, it is just not accepting that reality is real.
Yeah, I
Or
mean, that's what
the
that's
grounds
what
of
it's.
reality are real.
We can talk about like where the term the red pill came from. Like I know it started in a lot of men's rights activist groups, but I mean it's used now in this QAnon and stuff where it's like, oh, I've taken the red pill. I see the world for how it actually is, and that's how you like convince yourself that you're not delusional. Because the thing is, if you were to like look at it from a normal person's point of view, you would realize how delusional you are. The thing is, if you convince yourself that they're all wrong and you are the only one that got it right, you no longer have to question whether your beliefs are delusional by comparing it to other people's beliefs, because they haven't taken the red pill. They are the ones that are the sheep, and I'm the one who's awake, and therefore I can't be delusional. Instead of going like, if there wasn't this sort of like masquerading of taking the red pill, you would see more of them comparing their beliefs to other people and then going like, wow, my belief is so much different than this person. Maybe I should like look deeper and see if I'm right or if they're wrong. And this doesn't happen because they get to push all these people away and just say that
That's
they're
what they
asleep.
do consider.
What do you mean?
The two options that you said, you made a little mistake. That if I'm right or they're wrong is all they consider. That's all they really do consider.
I meant it the other way. Like they don't wonder if they're ever wrong. They are convinced that they're right because everyone else is a sheep. And so if people disagree
not to
with
critique you, I just thought it was a good way to explain it.
Yeah, I mean exactly. I mean that's what it is. It's the whole sometimes you're what was it? I think Michael Brooks put it best in that Destiny debate where he was like, sometimes I'm right, sometimes you're wrong. Like that's basically what they believe.
Heads I win, tails you lose.
Yeah, exactly.
It definitely is a interesting and weird worldview. Not really interesting, but horrific would be a best way to put it.
Yeah, I think it's just like it's a worldview that preys on people who feel like they're missing purpose, and then from there it has tools to reinforce itself, like this idea that everyone else is asleep, you're the only one awake, you're the only one that knows the truth, everyone else is like a sheep. And so
it's like a desperate academianism. Like that's probably not the right word to put there.
It's like if you were to fail in the rest of the world in any other like way. So you find this sort of academia that isn't even real academia that exists out there, and you can be successful at that.
Yeah, dark academia.
Yeah,
you can understand race science that nobody else accepts, and it's not peer reviewed at all.
It's looking for purpose and derangement. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, it's being delusional and missing purpose. So you look for your purpose within the delusion.
That gets into like Albert Camus at that point. Just the reality is now absurd, and the one who has accepted that has accepted his fate. But if he shall not accept it, then his only escape is to escape life itself.
I mean, I'm an absurdist, so I totally relate.
I do not understand like most of the words in that book. I am confused. I read like the first 2 chapters and it's like, this is foreign language to me. I can't. I know it's translated, but this don't make a.
It probably helps to read a bunch of other philosophy. Usually, philosophy itself is based upon philosophy before it. So It's like
I,
a whole fucking like journey to get into
yeah,
philosophy.
I had a friend back at home who he used to be a philosophy professor at our local college, and it's probably one of those where they keep them on. They keep them on for like 2 or 3 years and then switch them out before they have to offer him tenure kind of deals. I don't know exactly, but he had a book of philosophy with also a book about that book on philosophy. It was a book on how to read that book. So the book itself is probably
Yeah.
like 80 books or 80 pages, and the book on how to read it is probably like 1,000. So
Yeah, I mean, you can look at like if you take Kant or whatever and his critique of pure reason, for instance, you can find graphs that tell you how the arguments connect, and whatnot. Like it's crazy how these people write, but
there's a whole nother sect of philosophy out there of philosophers who didn't really add anything, but they did another level on top of making other philosophers more understandable.
yeah, thank God for them too. I've been indulging myself in a lot of philosophy recently, and it's been
Yeah,
it's
no,
been helpful to have people who deconstruct what these people were trying to say. So if I
yeah,
don't
no one would
understand
be a
something,
Hegelian anymore if those people didn't
oh my
exist.
God, have you seen the what's his name? I think his name's like Gregory something. He has like over like maybe is it like 200? Maybe it's like 400 videos or something. That's like a part of the Phenomenology of Spirit by Hegel, and it's just like 30-minute videos, and there's like 400 of them, and there's like 50 of them that are just on the introduction. Like it's just crazy. It's insane.
Man could not write. I think with talking to this person, I think I learned that most of the terms we use for Hegel, and especially the dialectic, are not his. It's other people that came along and made it a lot more easier.
Yeah, it's because when you read a lot of these philosophers, you have to understand the language that was being used. So they'll almost basically words will be being used in a way that they're not usually used. So sometimes you'll have people that come over and try to like pick a better word to use to make sense of the idea that they were trying to convey and whatnot.
Yeah,
But yeah,
but
philosophy.
that's for another
Yeah,
episode.
we'll get into a philosophy some other time. There's too much there.
Yeah, I'm leftology, not philosophyology.
Philosophology.
Okay, well, thanks for coming on. I'll try to get this up by tomorrow
Yeah,
on Spotify and stuff.
it was a good time. I'm down to come on anytime. I mean, I like having
Yeah,
conversations.
I need other people to record with because I do not want to talk to myself for 40 minutes and then be like, that's good enough for Spotify now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that
I
you can get some
I
of
never will
the.
get there.
I think you can get some of the other guys in the chat on as well. I'm sure like Alex and Mouthy would be down to talk sometime.
Yeah, keep my age range of like 16 plus because
Just
it can get like 12 on here.
yeah. The world of online politics is weird about that. Like I've talked to
The-
people who I
it
thought were like 27 or something, and then I get them in Discord and they're like just like turning
They have like the
16,
squeaky
and I'm like,
voice.
wait, why were you typing about Hegel earlier? Like what? I know you haven't read that.
You have Algebra 2 homework to be doing.
Exactly. Well, thanks for having me on. I'm gonna go get
Okay.
pizza because I'm hungry. So
You go have fun with that.
all
Hopefully
right.
it's not Papa John's.
Actually, I was gonna go there because it's a discount. Because
I'm
I
sorry for
work
you.
there. All right, see you, buddy.